Today on Christian World News, persecution in Iran. This pastor refuses to denounce his faith even if it means execution. And the ghosts of war still linger on the streets of Bosnia. But now hear how one woman of faith is spreading a message of reconciliation. Plus, biblical history online, how you can view the ancient Dead Sea Scrolls from the comfort of your own home. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of Christian World News. I'm George Thomas. My colleague Wendy Griffith is on assignment. We begin with significant news in Iran. An Iranian pastor makes a stand for Christ. As Charlene Israel reports, Yusuf Nadakhani faces execution for refusing to renounce his faith.
The Iranian court told Pastor Yusuf Nadakhani to recant his Christian faith or face the death penalty. He refused every time.
They use the phrase, Pat, opportunities, as if they're being merciful. If he recants his beliefs in Jesus Christ, then he gets mercy under Sharia law. And anybody that says Sharia law is compatible with universal human rights or the U.S. Constitution, obviously it's not. And this is a perfect example of this.
Christian Solidarity Worldwide says Iranian law doesn't even define apostasy or its punishment. The group says that in this case, the courts are using fatwas issued by powerful ayatollahs.
This whole situation, the charges against him and the punishment he's facing are illegal not only by the Iranian constitution, but also the international treaties to which Iran is party.
The pastor's case stands as a clear example of Iran's current crackdown on Christians. Recently, the government has openly admitted that Iranians are leaving the Islamic faith and becoming Christians.
In particular, over the last year, it has been this persecution has gained momentum. And I think that's really because the church is growing with increasing momentum.
Many believe Pastor Nadakhani was targeted because he spoke out. He recently questioned the Muslim monopoly on the religious instruction of children in Iran. Charlene Israel, CBN News.
The American Center for Law and Justice is working to help free Pastor Yusuf. Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is ACLJ's Jordan Sekulow. So, Jordan, he obviously has refused to recant. What happens next?
This trial is over, and what has happened, he has been transferred back to jail. He was given a final opportunity to recant his faith for the third time, which is the usual procedure under Sharia law. What's troubling here now, George, is that earlier in the trial over the last few days, people were not allowed in. Complete military lockdown, security lockdown, no outside press, no friends. It was just the lawyer and him in there with the state officials who were prosecuting him, the local officials, and, of course, the judges. And so in the past, people had been able to confirm that he had walked out of court. They could see him actually walk out of court and get into a van and be transferred back to prison. That did not happen on the final day of his trial. Under the Iranian legal system, the court has up to a week to issue a written order, but does not have to give any kind of public notice on executions, and they don't have to wait for that written order to be out until they carry out his execution. So what we could see happen here, why people need to pray and we need to raise voices all over the world, is this execution could occur without us knowing about it or being able to confirm it for weeks. I mean, once this trial ends, we're in a very dangerous stage, and the fact that they could not see him today, it makes me very nervous and, of course, praying for his family.
And my understanding, Jordan, is that the last man to be executed because he was a Christian, because he left Islam, was back on December 3rd, 1990. The gentleman's name was Hussein Sudman. That was the last time, many, many years ago. Is there, in the criminal statutes, is there some kind of legal precedence that requires the execution of somebody who leaves Islam, who abandons Islam?
Actually, in the current law, in the current Iranian criminal penal code, there is not. But in the laws that exist, in their constitution, for instance, jurists are allowed to refer to religious teachings by supreme leaders like Ayatollah Khomeini. And Ayatollah Khomeini wrote a whole book on legal jurisprudence in the 1970s and 80s, two-volume set, which approves the death penalty for apostasy. And their constitution vaguely allows these jurists to base their rulings on that. So you won't find it in the penal code. But there's another problem, George. That actual apostasy law is moving through the Iranian legislature as we speak, and jurists simultaneously can refer to that, even though it hasn't become official law, and say, well, this has been blessed by the supreme leader. If it's been blessed by the supreme leader, we can then rely on it. So this is a situation, as you pointed out, George, it's rare to have a Christian on trial for apostasy in Iran. Usually the regime or some faction or extremist group would just kill Christians, and we've seen the brutal repression of that, not take it to trial, not have a full hearing and make it so public.
I know that you guys at the ACLJ, as well as others, are at the forefront of putting the international spotlight on Pastor Yusuf's life. Do you think that's going to make a difference in this situation, the intensity of the world community on sparing this man's life?
I think it could, George, and here's why. The Iranian leadership, specifically Ayatollah Khomeini and President Ahmadinejad, they don't need the negative attention. And what I'm sure they were thinking right now is, well, this is a regional court system and a regional Supreme Court system, and it's not really our responsibility, and we won't be responsible for that. And I think that's why, George, we need to see Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the UN leadership, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, come out and say that this will be, if this happens, it will be blamed on the Ayatollah, it will be blamed on the Islamic Republic of Iran, not on some court system in northern Iran where this trial was held this week.
Jordan, as you know, there is a thriving, flourishing underground church movement in Iran. Obviously, they're keeping a very close eye on the fate of this gentleman. Do you get a sense that perhaps this will force them even deeper underground and change the dynamics of how they share the gospel in the Islamic Republic?
I think absolutely, George, and here's why. Pastor Yusuf was born to Muslim parents, but this court found, and why it was sent back to the Supreme Court, George, by the Supreme Court to the lower court for review, that he was not a Muslim at the age of majority, which is 15. So technically would not be a full apostate because he never was a Muslim. But the lower court system and the Supreme Court affirmed, as long as you were just born to Muslim parents now, even if it's confirmed by legal systems in Iran. So the Iranian, the Islamic Republic of Iran's legal system says you were never a Muslim. Now, if either one of your parents were, you can be charged with apostasy. I think this is sending, shockwaves down the spine of the church in Iran. But let's not forget, George, though this is very public. Christians are being killed in Iran on a regular basis, sanctioned by this regime. This is just one opportunity where we can expose their process to the world. And I just ask everyone who's watching right now to pray for Pastor Yusuf and pray for his brave Muslim attorney, who is a human rights attorney who has been sentenced to 9 years in jail, George, and had his law license revoked after this case is over. So we need to be praying for them and everyone, the Church of Iran, of course. And
Jordan with the American Center for Law and Justice, as always, sir, thank you for bringing attention to this very, very important issue. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, George.
We'll continue to pray for Pastor Yusuf. On other news, Christians are under attack in Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim nation. A suicide bomber blew himself up inside a church as hundreds were leaving a Sunday service. At least 22 people were injured in the explosion at the 10th Bethel Gospel Church in Solo City. A woman at a nearby internet cafe told police that just before the attack, the bomber visited her shop and browsed websites about Al-Qaeda. He also left behind a bag with a copy of the Quran, a mask, and a cell phone charger. Pastor Rick Warren of California's Saddleback Church said 10th Bethel Gospel is a sister church in his purpose-driven network. Coming up, ever wondered what the Deadly Sea Scrolls really looked like? Well, find out how you can see this piece of biblical history from your very own computer. Back in a moment. Well, this Sunday, churches and congregations around the world will take part in a very significant event. It's called the Global Day of Prayer for the Peace of Jerusalem. As in previous years, a Jerusalem celebration of the Day of Prayer will be broadcast live from that city. Robert Stearns, one of the event organizers, told CBN News why it's important to pray for Israel at this time.
Truly, there has never been a time that we need to pray for Jerusalem like today. I think it's just obvious with the events in New York last week, all of the discussions at the United Nations, the attention of the world is focused on Israel and the Middle East. And really, at the heart of that is what happens in the city of Jerusalem. So the time is now for concerned believers to become educated and empowered to be standing in prayer, as Psalm 122:6 tells us. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
And Stern says nearly 300,000 churches are expected to participate globally. Well, a man who literally breathes the air of Jerusalem is our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief based in Jerusalem. Chris Mitchell, my man, thank you so much for being with us here. Robert Stearns talks about a very significant time for Israel. This truly is. And you live it, you breathe it. Why is it so significant?
Well, he referred to the time we're living in right now as sort of one of the most critical times, and I would say it really is. Yeah, Turkey is turning against Israel. Egypt is starting to turn against Israel. Iran is continuing to build weapons of mass destruction, trying to destroy Israel. Hamas has 50,000 rockets on its northern border. Hamas has maybe 10,000 on its southern border. So the threats to Israel are probably unprecedented right now. And this campaign to delegitimize the state of Israel, that its very existence is under question. So this is probably the most critical time to be praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
And when you talk the context of what is taking place today in the heart of this very strategic part of the world, these convulsions, Israel is feeling these convulsions. Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Iran, Syria, they're feeling it.
They're feeling it exactly. When I go to the streets, when I go talk to people, as I go about my daily business or about, talking to newsmakers, they're feeling it as well. They're feeling kind of overwhelmed and surrounded. And I think it's an amazing time. It's an opportunity for Christians to be praying. Because, our colleague, Wendy Griffith and Craig Von Busick, have written a book called Praying the News. And it's so important. We do have a role, Christians do have a role, to really have an impact on what's happening in the world today. And we can pray the news. We can pray what's happening. I believe we even saw that last week at the United Nations. And the delay in the vote for Palestinian state, I believe, was the result of Christians praying.
As 300,000 plus churches gathered this weekend for the Global Day of Prayer, are there specific examples you can point to, Chris, where prayer was a shifting, a taking place, a changing of world events?
I think if you look at people like Rees Howells, there was a book written about him called Intercessor, where literally world events were being shaped by prayer. Derek Prince did a book called Shaping History through Prayer and Fasting. We do have an impact on what's happening. Christians can really play a role in what's happening in the news today.
And they certainly can. And that message is coming from our very own Chris Mitchell. It is a pleasure to have you here literally with us in the studio.
Great to be here, George.
Thank you, sir. Okay, well, the Dead Sea Scrolls, something that Chris is familiar with, could be the most significant archaeological find of the 20th century. Well, now, digital technology has made them available to anyone with a computer around the world. Google and the Israel Museum have launched an online exhibit of the scrolls, which include the oldest known biblical text not found in the Bible. Viewers can zoom in and out of each scroll and click on areas of the Hebrew text to get an English translation.
Users from all over the world can examine and explore these ancient biblical manuscripts at a level of detail never possible before. This is actually a part of a wider Google initiative to bring the world information and cultural heritage online.
Exciting stuff. Well, the scrolls also contain information about Jewish life in Israel 2,000 years ago. You can go to our website, cwnews.org, for more on this story and the link to the online exhibit. Well, up next, the wounds of war. How one Christian is bringing reconciliation to the streets of Bosnia.
Here at CBN, we see incredible things happen when we stand together.
That's why we want to thank the thousands of you who recently pledged to join the 700 Club.
Your monthly gift makes it possible to bring crucial help to people who need it most.
Each day, you have a part in healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and broadcasting the gospel across America and around the world.
You've brought hope and help to those in desperate need.
And changed their lives forever.
Just like you did for Yasana. He lived in a slum breaking rocks for $2 a day. That's when you sent him goats to raise, providing his family a better income. And you gave his grandchildren school supplies, changing the future for Yasana and his family.
So please watch for this mailing and send in your pledge.
This year, millions will experience the love and saving power of Jesus Christ.
Only because you were there.
And welcome back to Christian World News. You see, in the 1990s, at least 200,000 people died on the streets of Bosnia as ethnic and religious hatred led Muslims, Catholics, and Orthodox Christians to slaughter each other. While nearly 2 decades later, the ghosts of that war still linger. On my recent trip to that country, I met one woman who is trying to banish them. For over 1,400 days, they fought on the streets of Sarajevo. Neighbor against neighbor, loved one against loved one. What Catholic Croats, Orthodox Serbs, and Muslim Bosnians did to each other in the name of ethnicity, in the name of religion, was simply awful. Rape, ethnic cleansing, genocide, cold-blooded murder, you name it, it happened. The fighting spread from the capital and soon engulfed the country. When the guns fell silent 3 years later, the horrors of what had happened shocked the world. And the estimates are some 250,000 Bosnians slaughtered each other on the streets of Sarajevo, Mostar, Srebrenica, Banja Luka. We remember those cities and the events that played out in front of our television screens. Now, 16 years later, with thousands missing, Bosnia remains haunted by memories of war. The ethnic and religious divisions still linger. Vanya Bule doesn't want to see war happen again.
We would like to see something different, leave something different as a heritage to our children.
So for the past several years, she's helped turn this piece of land, tucked in a valley and surrounded by mountains, outside the capital city of Sarajevo, into a place of reconciliation. For 4 weeks in the summer, she invites Croats, Serbs, and Muslims to a camp event like none other.
So many kids, teenagers, young people, even older people who come, they are so amazed at what they see. And they are drawn to it. They are drawn to the unity. They are drawn to the place where there's no pressure of ethnicity, but they can live a life in community, in fellowship, in love, experience one another.
You see, Vanya Bule is an evangelical Christian. She believes Christ is the answer for Bosnia.
As we pray, may your kingdom come and your will to be done in this place is our only hope, not just for eternity, but to live this earthly life.
Vanya is from Croatia. She moved to Bosnia several years ago to be a missionary. She earned a Master of Divinity from Regent University in Virginia.
And when I came to Regent, I came with a deep conviction and a calling to come back to my country, to get everything I needed to do and come back.
Now she runs Emek Baraka, a ministry that helps organize the summer outreach programs. Emek Baraka is Hebrew, meaning Valley of Blessing.
To have these people come, you touch them, you impart into them, then they go home to the north, to the west, to the east, to the south, and they bring what they received here. And in building them, we build the nation.
When I leave here, I can tell others in my school that it is possible to live together.
I attended this camp for the first time 9 years ago, and it changed my life. I saw how Jesus Christ can transform your heart and attitude towards others. It's an opportunity for all the leaders to come together, fellowship, and encourage one another. We pray for revival, we pray for each other. It really is a time to recharge and be refreshed by God.
Organizing the camp is not without its share of challenges. There's no hot water, no proper toilets. Campers have to sleep in tents. There are no buildings on the property, except for this bombed-out shell of a structure that serves as the kitchen and feeds hundreds.
Every year again, fixing that bombed-down kitchen, trying to fix it so it's somewhat usable.
She has a dream to one day build a real kitchen and new dormitories so they can hold additional camps throughout the year. For now, though, she continues to pray that this valley can be a blessing to the nation.
When I come to this place and I see them playing the same games, when I see them sitting next to each other, when I see them worshiping the same God, when I see them and I don't see ethnic groups. I see people of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I see a future generation who might, just might, have a different future.
Christian World News, your window to the global church. For stories of revival,
Another revival.
persecution,
Relatives and fellow Christians mourn him.
First country over the international date
I'm
line.
Coach Thomas in Baghdad, and coming up on the broadcast, an exclusive interview.
and the impact of Christian leaders. Watch Christian World News.
Courageous, a new movie from Sherwood Baptist Church. It's theaters this Friday. The movie tackles the theme of fatherhood and what it means to be a real man in today's world. Wendy Griffith was at the red carpet premiere in Atlanta.
The stars have come out here in Atlanta, Georgia for the red carpet premiere of Courageous. It's the latest big screen event for Georgia's own Sherwood Baptist Church. Thousands of people lined up outside the famous Fox Theater to be among the first to see the film, including Miss America 2008, Kirsten Hagland.
I love Courageous. That's why I'm so excited for the good work that these films are going to do throughout the country and encourage families to stay strong and stay together. Those are the values that have held this country together, and it's the ones that bring us closer to Christ.
Sheriff's Office, we have a warrant for your arrest.
Back door, back door! Alex Kendrick, who co-wrote and directed the movie, also stars as one of the police officers who excels at work but struggles to connect with his teenage son at home.
I don't feel like I started well. I want to finish well.
We hope to communicate to dads that when you look at your children, they're different. What makes them feel loved? Is it quality time? Is it a gift? Is it verbal affirmation? You know, whatever it is. And for me to learn how each of my 6 children feel loved, then I make sure I hone in on that, because if I can capture their heart, they'll listen to me.
Alex's brother Stephen, who co-wrote and produced the action-packed police drama, says Courageous has the potential to change lives for generations to come.
We want men to be inspired. You know, there's that closing speech, that gladiator kind of Braveheart kind of speech at the end of the movie, and men feel that call. They want to grab a hold of the steering wheel and say, I'm going to be strong and courageous for my family, you know, and that's what we want to happen.
Actor Kevin Downs, who plays a cop that struggles to make the right decisions, says the movie is a roller coaster of emotion that will provoke you to action.
Watching this film and coming out of this film will inspire you to want to go home and either love on your children or call your dad and just go, man, Dad, I love you so much. Thank you for all that you've done to bring me into this world, and how about we go fishing or just hang out?
Although Courageous does focus on fatherhood, actress Eleanor Brown says it's a movie for everyone to see.
It takes courage not only to be a father, it takes courage to be a supportive wife, especially if the husband isn't where you want him to be. And even for young people, you know, they're going to come to the film and they're going to see themselves, wow, you know, I want my dad to be like that. I want to have a relationship like that with my dad.
Look for Courageous in a theater near you on September 30th. Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Atlanta.
Well, thanks so much for joining us on this week's edition of Christian World News. On behalf of everyone who works behind the scenes here, until next week, goodbye, and God bless you.
Well, listen, when you do call to become a 700 Club partner, we want to bless you with this. It's called The Signs of the Times, How Will It All End? Now, listen, I know it sounds really gloomy and doomy, but it's not. What it is it's not about fear. It's about faith, building your faith in God, the plan and perfect plan that He has for your lives and all of our lives. So listen, that's why both Pat and Gordon put this together. In fact, I'm going to be quiet so you can take a look. So take a look.
We live in uncertain times. There are wars and rumors of wars, economic distress, unprecedented natural disasters, and unimaginable famine. But were today's headlines written thousands of years ago? Are these the signs of the last days that biblical prophets foretold? And how will it all end?
In Signs of the Times, the 700 Club brings you crucial information along with important teachings by Pat and Gordon Robertson that will prepare you for what lies ahead. You'll learn about events that point to the return of Jesus Christ, the rapture, and who will be saved, the signs of the Antichrist, and the role of Israel in the last days.
I want you to understand what the Bible has to say about the end of the age, so that you and your loved ones will be prepared for the days to come.
Signs of the Times, available now.